guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Let's crack real math. My name is Viraaj, and in this video we'll be having a look at how we can find the mean from grouped frequency tables. So before I begin the video, please make sure that you perform an LSS, that is like, share and subscribe, and without wasting much time, let's begin. So this is the sort of topic that is much better explained when doing examples. So I would go and do examples, but while I am doing the examples, I will be explaining each steps that need to be taken. So let's look at the first example we have. Okay, is the first example. Right, so the question says 80 students were asked how much time they spent on the internet in one day. Okay, good to know. How much time? The table shows the results. So as you can see, for the time, the resultant times, they have a particular range. Like this first value has time of 0 to 1. That could be minutes or seconds. I think it's hours. It's represented here. It says hours. So between 0 to 1 hour, then there's the other range that's 1 to 2 hours, then 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 5, and so on and so forth. And then this number of students show the amount of people that fall into that category. So from 0 to 1 hour, 15 students fall into that category. From 1 to 2 hours, 11 students fall into that category. From 2 to 3 hours, 10 students fall into that category. So that's basically what they're trying to say. And when you do have something like this, when you do have something like a range, like from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, this is simply known as the class width. I'm not saying class because this question related to students is just called the class width. Class width. And why is it called class width? Because they think of it as the range to be some sort of width. And in order to find the mean, because the question says calculate an estimate of the mean time spent on the internet by 80 students, the first thing you need to do is find the mid values of the range. So simply the value in between the two. For example, if I had 6 and 10, if I wanted to find the value, the mid value, or the number in the middle of it, I know this would be 8. And one way you can know this, I know it like this off the top of my head due to practice, but one way you can know it is that you have to add both the numbers and eventually divide it by 2. So 10 plus 6 would give you 16, and divided by 2 would give you 8. Again, this is just an example I did over here. Numbers can be different. So let's go ahead and get the midpoints that we need to know. So first things first, we need to get the mid value and then times it by the number of, or the frequency rather, number of students in this case is the frequency in this case. So 0 to 1. Now what is the half value of 1? It is 0.5. So 0.5. If you want to know how I got 0.5, you could do 1 plus 0 and divide it by 2, and that would give you 0.5. And we times the 0.5 by 15, because that is the corresponding number of students, or in this case the frequency. Now let's go on to the next value. We have 1 to 2. The midpoint of or the mid value of 1 to 2 is 1.5, and you times this by 11 because that's the frequency there. Next is between 2 to 3. Between 2 to 3, the mid value is 2.5. 2.5, and you times this by 10. Again, it's 2.5 because if you do 2 plus 3, that's 5, and then you divide it by 2. Next value is 3 to 5. The mid value is 4, and you times it by 19 because that is the amount of students, or the frequency in this case. Next value is 5 to 7, mid is 6, so 6 times 13 because that's the frequency, and then 8.5 times 12. Why 8.5? Because 8.5 is the mid value of 7 to 10. You could do 7 plus 10 and then divide by 2, you'd get 8.5, and then times it by 12 because that is the frequency. So now, using a calculator or doing it mentally, you need to solve for these. So 0.5 times 15 is 7.5. 1.5 times 11 is 16.5. 2.5 times 10, that's 25. 4 times 19 is 76. If I'm not wrong, let's just quickly check. 4 times 19, yep, 76. 6 times 13 is 78. And 8.5 times 12 should be 102. Let's check quickly. Okay, yep, 102. So now that you have all your values over here, the next thing you want to do is add them all up. Add all these values all the way from here to here. All the values here, you want to add them all up. So let's just represent the addition sign here. That means simply adding them. So using a calculator, 0.5 plus 16.5 plus 25 plus 76 plus 78 plus 102. That is 305. 305. Now this is not the final answer. The only step that now remains is to divide this 305 by the total frequency, or the total amount of students in this case, which was 80. It said 80 students. If it didn't specify in the question, you could also just count the number of students here, 15 plus 11 plus 10 plus 19 plus 13 plus 12, and that should also give you 80. So once you have summed up all the calculations that we did, that's 7.5, 16.5, 25, 76, 78, 102, sum them all up and divide them by the frequency. So 305, just write that again, 305 all over 80, because that's the total frequency, 80 students, and doing that in your calculator, this is 3.8125. Now they could ask you to round it up to maybe one decimal place, which in this case would be 3.8, but I'll just write the whole thing. And the units are already given, that's hours. If the units are not given, please make sure that you know what units to use and you write it down. And that is the answer for this question. So on to the next example. Okay, let's just zoom in a tad bit. Right. So this one says 120 students are asked to answer a question. Okay, good to know. The time, t seconds, the times in seconds taken by each student to answer the question is measured. The frequency table shows the results. So again, as you can see, we have a range, again also known as the class width. So this is the range that we have to work in, and then this shows the amount of people, or the amount of students, again in this case, fall in that range. So that is what we have to work with. And in order to find the mean, which again they asked for, I believe, it says calculate an estimate of the mean time. Right, so we need to find the mid value of the range and then times it by the corresponding frequency. So let's start. The mid value of 0 to 10 is 5. You could do 10 plus 0 and divide by 2, you would get 5 as well. So 5, and then you times it by 6 because that's the corresponding frequency. In this case, you can see they wrote frequency here. They didn't write the number of students, but you should know that if they are saying students or the amount of people or the amount of anything that falls in a particular category, that's simply the frequency. The next one, 10 to 20, the mid value is 15, and you times it by 44 because that is the corresponding frequency. 20 and 30, the mid value is 25, and you times it by 40 because that's the corresponding frequency. 30 and 40, mid value is 35, and you times it by 14 because that is the corresponding frequency over here. 40 and 50, mid value is 45, and then you times it by 10, corresponding frequency, 10. And then 50 and 60, mid value is 55, and you times it by 6, which is the corresponding frequency. Again, to find the mid value, you can do 50 plus 60 and then divide by 2, you should still get 55. You could do that for any sort of range. Just take the smaller number, let me just represent it like this, x to t to y. So if you want to find the mid value of these two numbers, all you do is x plus y all over 2. But with over practice, you would most likely then be used to it, and you won't even have to use a calculator. You can just know it from the top of your head. So now that we have our values, time to do our multiplication. So 5 times 6, that gives 30. 15 times 44 is 660. 25 times 40 should be 1000. Let me just quickly confirm that. Yep. 35 times 14 is 490. 45 times 10 is 450. And 55 times 6 is 320. Oh no, sorry, 330. Yeah, 330. So now that you have our values, all we have to do is simply add them up, and then of course in the end divide it by the frequency. So let's add them all up. You can use a calculator for this, so because it can get tricky doing it mentally. So 30 plus 660 plus 1000 plus 490 plus 450 plus 330. And doing this, I am getting 2960. Now again, this is not your final answer. You now need to divide this by the frequency, the total frequency. So you do 292,960 all over the total frequency, which I think was 120. Yep, 120 students. If it didn't specify, you could have just added all these up. 6 plus 44 plus 40 plus 14 plus 10 plus 6, and that would give you 120 as well. So divide it by 120, and you can do this in your calculator. 2960 divided by 120. This gives 24.67 recurring decimal. So you can write it like this: 24.67. The units is already given, so no need to write it again. Again, you need to make sure what accuracy they want you to round it off. They could say one decimal place, they could say the nearest whole number, which in this case would be 25 then. On to the next example. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. Right, it says the time, T seconds, taken for each of 50 chefs to cook an omelette is recorded. Okay, good to know. The time, again, we have some ranges: 25 to 25, 20 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, 40 to 45, and 45 to 50. And then you have the corresponding frequency. Now, first thing it's asked, it says A, write down the modal time interval. Now, if you don't know what modal time interval is, I would recommend you watch my video on the basics of mean, mode, median, and range. That would help you with this question. So, as you know from our knowledge, that the modal is simply the range in this case, because there is a range, or the class width that occurs the most. And in order to see what is the modal, you have to see the frequency, the part of the table or the class width in this case with the highest frequency. And we can see that the highest frequency is 19, and the class width for that is 35 is less than T, which is less than or equal to 40. So for A, your answer is 35 is less than equal to T, is less than T, which is less than equal to 40. That's the answer for A. On to the B part. It says calculate an estimate of the mean time, show all your working. So okay, first things first, we need to find the midpoints, or the mid values rather, of the class widths or the range. So 20 and 25, mid value is 22.5, so you have 22.5 times 2, because that's the corresponding frequency. Again, 22.5 I got from 20 plus 25 divided by 2. So then 25 and 30, mid value is 27.5, and times it by 6, because that's the corresponding frequency. And I got 27.5 because 25 plus 30 is 55, and then divided by 2 you would get 27.5. 30 and 35, mid value is 32.5, and you times it by 7, because that is the corresponding frequency. I think it's 7. Yes, it is. Next we have 35 to 40, mid value is 37.5, and you times it by 19, because that is the frequency. Next is 40 to 45, mid value is 42.5, and you times it by 9, because that is the corresponding frequency. And then we have 45 to 50, and the mid value of that is 47.5, and you times it by 7 because that is the corresponding frequency for that class width. So doing our multiplication, 22.5 times 2, that's 45. 27.5 times 6 is 165. 32.5 times 7, that is 227.5, I think. Let's just quickly check that. 32.5 times 7. Yep, it's 227.5. So 37.5 times 19, that's 712.5. 42.5 times 9, I think that's 382. Let's just quickly check. Okay, 382.5. And 47.5 times 7. So let's check that. That's 332.5. So now that you have all your values, we know what to do next, and that is to simply add them all up. So using your calculator again, let's add them all up. That's 45 plus 165 plus 227.5 plus 712.5 plus 382.5 plus 332.5. Adding them all up, I have 1,865. And this is not the final answer by any means. Now what you have to do is divide this by the total frequency that they had given. I think it was 50. It said 50 chefs. Yep, 50. So you divide it by 50, and then doing this in your calculator, 1865 divided by 50 is 37.3, and that is your answer in seconds. 37.3 seconds. The unit is already given, so no need to write it again. And that is the answer for that question. And on to the final example for this video, and this is a challenge question. So please do pause the video and have a go at this by yourself, and then resume the video to see if you're correct or incorrect. If you are incorrect, please take note of your mistake. So let's go. It says Ricardo asks some motorists how many liters of fuel they use in one day. Okay, good to know. The number of liters correct to the nearest liter are shown in the table. Okay, we have number of liters, wow, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and the number of motorists, we have 11, 10, P, 4, and 8, okay? P looks interesting. It says, for this table, the mean number of liters is 17.7, okay? Calculate the value of P. So we need to find P, and they gave us the mean number. Now, as you can see in this question, we do not have a width, we do not have a class width, we don't have the range. And when you don't have the range, it makes it a lot easier because you now don't need to find the mid value. All you have to do is simply times the corresponding number of liters with the corresponding number of motorists. So this simply becomes 16 times 11. Now you need to find midpoint. So again, the next thing would now be 17 times 10. Then it would be 18 times P. Then it would be 19 times 4. And then lastly 20 times 8. So all I did is I took the number on top, that's the number of liters, which is all of this in this case, and multiplied it with the corresponding number of motorists. So doing this in your calculator or mentally, we know that 16 times 11 is 176, 17 times 10 is 117, 18 times P is 18P, 19 times 4 is 76, I think. Let me just quickly check. Yep, and then 20 times 8 is 160. And if you add up all of this, because you know that eventually we will be dividing it by the frequency and then equating it to 17.7 to solve for P. So if you add all of this up, 176 plus 170 plus 18P plus 76 plus 160. So keeping this 18p aside, I am getting 582 if I add up 160, 76, 170 and 176, and then all of this obviously plus 18p. Now we know that's not the final answer, and we're not just going to be equating this to 17.7. We need to divide this by the total amount of frequency. Now, as I said, in this question, they don't tell you the total amount of frequency. You have to find that out by yourself, and to do that, you can simply times all the number of motorists. I mean, add up, not times, add up all the number of motorists. So, doing this, we have something like 11 plus 10. So 11 from here plus 10 plus p plus 4 and then plus 8. And simplifying this, 11 plus 10, that's 21, plus 12 is 33. So you have 33 plus p. That is your total frequency. So we need to divide the 582 plus 18p by 33 plus p. So let's do that at the bottom here. We know this is now 582 plus 18p all over 33 plus p. And we equate this because we know that if we do this, we should get a mean rather, and we should equate this to the mean they gave to us, which is 17.7. So let's do that. So if we are solving for p, we know that we now need to cross multiply. There's a 1 down here, so cross multiply. 582 plus 18p times 1 is the same thing, so 582 plus 18p. So and then you do the other side, 17.7 times 33, that's 584.1 plus 17.7 times p, which is 17.7p. So collecting your like terms, you know this now will be 18p minus 17.7p equals to 584.1 minus 582. Why minus 17.7p? Because this p goes to 17.7p goes to the other side and becomes negative. And then y minus 582 because the 582 over here goes to the other side and becomes negative. So 18 minus 17.7, that should be 2.1. Let me just quickly do that. 18 minus 17.7. Oh, sorry, 0.3, not 2.1. 0.3 p equals to 584.1 minus 582. That's 2.1 equals to 2.1. So all I did, simply subtracted 17.7 from 18 and 582 from 584.1. And we know that solving for p, we know p is 2.1 divided by 0.3. And doing that, that should be 7. Just quickly confirm that in your calculator. Yep, it is 7. So p is 7. So we can go and write p is 7. And in this case, since it is the frequency, you could write 7 motorists as a unit because the frequency is simply the number of motorists as it said over here. So that's the answer for that question, and that indeed brings us to the end of this video. So thank you for watching this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to perform an LSS, that is like, share and subscribe. And thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice one.